Welcome to Glass Houses, a Billy Joel podcast. I'm Michael Grosvenor.
And I'm Jack Firneno. Join us as we dig deep into Billy Joel's songs and history and what his music has meant to us. It may be the beginning of 2021, but this installment marks the end of our first 12 months of episodes. So we decided to do something special for the occasion.
We're hosting a roundtable with some of the biggest Billy Joel fans we know. It's an opportunity for us all to chat about the music we love.
Our conversation uncovered new stories about Billy and the band that we'd never heard before. And we got a glimpse into just how fun and tight-knit the fan community can be. We had a lot of fun putting this one together. It took a little more planning than usual, I think, but it came together really well.
Yeah, it was great. I didn't know what to expect. I know we've done a few interviews before where it was the two of us conversing with one, maybe two people, but to get 5 or 6 people on the line at once, It was really interesting to see how it all unfolded. And I'm really glad we did this because it made for a great night and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really did. It was funny. Michael and I mentioned after recording it, we actually felt a little nervous doing it just because it felt like we had an audience for the first time.
Yeah, instead of, when you and I are doing this, it feels like a very casual conversation. It almost felt like a performance. Like if you've ever seen like a podcast done in front of a live audience, that's kind of what it felt like at first. But once I let go of that and realized, these are people we know, everyone loves Billy, it kind of quickly fell away after we started getting into it. But yeah, there was a little bit of nerves at first.
But it worked out well, and there was a lot of camaraderie. Some of the people knew each other ahead of time, and some of them didn't. And everybody just ended up sounding like old friends, so that was pretty cool. But before we get into that, let's jump into some fan mail. And this time around, we're going to pull up some Facebook comments that we've gotten on some recent posts.
This first one is from Paul Trumbull in response to our Phil Ramone episode. He writes, "This was my favorite episode, and I have loved them all. I was fascinated listening to the Brad Lee interview. He was so knowledgeable and so down to earth. In the early summer of 2001, I was at a Detroit Tiger game. The weather wasn't great, and we were on the verge of a downpour. There was a lot of empty seats due to the weather, and it made people watching easier. I looked behind me, and I saw a man who looked just like Phil Ramone. He was wearing a cotton black dog ball cap. I think that's a restaurant in New York. He just looked sort of important to me, and he gave me that vibe. My buddy, whom I was attending the game with, was also a big Billy Joel fan. I said, 'Brian, is that Phil Ramone sitting behind us?' He started cackling as he always did and said, 'I think it is.' Around the 6th inning, that downpour arrived and we took cover inside the stadium. At a Ty Cobb exhibit, I saw the distinguished man wearing the black dog cap. I walked up to him and said, 'Pardon me, sir, is your name Phil?' He responded in a kind manner, 'Yes.' I then asked, 'Phil Ramone?' Again, he says, 'Yes.' Like a dork, I said, 'Wow, so nice to meet you. My name is Paul Trumbull.' He smiled and said it was nice to meet me. I asked why he was in Detroit, and he said he was there to see Donny Osmond's show at the Fox Theater, as he had just produced his latest album and wanted to see the first show. I said to him, 'Billy Joel is one of my heroes, and I recognized you from the liner notes of his albums.' He smiled and said, 'I just talked to Billy yesterday, in fact, and he's doing well.' I loved that he said that. I told him how nice it was meeting him, shook his hand, and left him there with Ty Cobb. I was happy to meet such a nice man."
Awesome, Paul. Thanks for the comment. And nice to sort of meet you here. Paul often chimes in on our posts, and they're great to read, so we're happy to give you finally a shout out here. That's such a great story, too, because, how many people would actually recognize Phil Ramone? You wouldn't be looking for him, let alone in Detroit, let alone at a ball game. So that's a pretty good eye.
Yeah, that's a good spot because that would have thrown me, too. That's the last place I would see to expect him. I've been to a million Detroit Tiger games in my life. I expect to see Kid Rock, Dave Coulier, all the Detroit people that you know. Jack White has been to some games. And I would have to think twice if I saw Phil Ramone. I'd be like, is that really the guy? Is that him?
And so next we have a sort of lightning round of comments. We had posted asking people what was your first Billy Joel concert, and we got a couple good responses. So I'm going to go ahead and butcher a couple people's last names and read off the responses we got. A couple of them are pretty quick. A couple of them get into more detail, so I thought this was a nice cross-section. Starting off, Robert J. Nebel writes, March 23rd, 1984, Richfield Coliseum, From Piano Man to an Innocent Man tour. George Salatis chimed in, same place, Richfield Coliseum, Cleveland, Ohio, Stormfront tour, 1990. And then they had a quick side conversation about how great that Coliseum was.
I've been to concerts in Cleveland. I think I saw Bruce Springsteen. It was at the Q. It's called Quicken Loans Arena. I think that's what replaced that Coliseum there.
And then Roy Horn wrote the Spectrum Philadelphia Glass Houses tour. And when I saw the picture, I realized I met Roy like 2 summers ago when I played with the tribute band. It was our first show up in the Poconos. And he came out and he chatted with us for a couple minutes. He had some cool stories, I believe, about hearing Billy on the radio back in the day. And I think he's the one who tipped me off about the Northampton, PA bootleg that had just come out a few years prior. So, Roy, if you hear this, I hope we get to see you again soon. Then Jennifer Hooper wrote, my first 2002 face-to-face with Elton. Not that I was a new Billy fan then, just born in the wrong decade. He was really rocking when I was still young to go to a Billy Joel show. He blew my socks off in 2002, and I've seen him every chance since then. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't see the 02. I saw, what was it, 94, right after the River of Dreams tour. And then I didn't see him again until 09. Paul Trumbull again chimes in. Chrysler Arena, February of 1984. The Afterglow stayed with me for weeks. I was also at the Palace show in February of 1990. He played 2 nights in a row, and on the second night, Bob Seger came out for the final encore, singing Old Time Rock and Roll. That's pretty cool. That's like the precursor to the Garden shows, I guess, having those special guests come out.
I was actually at one of those 2 shows. I don't know if I was that hip to Bob Seger at that age, but I was at one of the February shows in 1990. That was my first show. So the Chrysler Arena, that's Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then the Palace, that's Auburn Hills, Michigan as well.
Chris Adams, Centennial Hall, Toledo, Ohio, February 1st, 1984. Got a lot of Midwest guys chiming in on this one.
Yeah, love it.
Kevin Mocker, January 18th, 1984, opening night of the Innocent Man Tour. Providence Civic Center, front row seat. Well, I guess that was a big year. That was probably the next generation that found him. Because you figure you probably had the run of The Stranger, 52nd Street and Glass Houses, capped them off with Songs in the Attic. Nylon Curtain was a big thing, but it was probably not a big radio album.
And I feel like the Nylon Curtain was still carrying over that core audience that jumped on with those records you just mentioned. While Pressure and Allentown got MTV play, it was An Innocent Man that really exploded with the videos. So I think that was the record that really got him the younger audience.
Right. This seems like it from our very unscientific and informal poll here.
Absolutely, right?
I am not a statistician.
No.
And finally, Drew Richardson writes, my first was for Stormfront. I was 13. I bought an amazing shirt with all the albums on it. I wonder if that is available in a retro store. I don't know, but I'm sure you'll find, if not that one, then a decent analog somewhere.
Yep, I've seen it on eBay. I know they've done a couple represses over the years of some stuff, but they really haven't gone back to the Stormfront era for any retro shirts. But yeah, I totally know that shirt that he's talking about.
So that wraps up our mailbag for this episode, and I think it was great that we took a good smattering of fan comments, because that's the theme of this show, our fan roundtable. And as we mentioned in the intro, the idea was to open this up and speak with a couple of big Billy fans that we know. And we got some people here you might know from the online community, and some people we hope to introduce you to as well.
We've got Mike Stutz, who, if you're on Facebook at all, you're very familiar with Mike. He created and runs the online community Billy Joel Completely Retold on Facebook. He's done a great series of location tours where he's gone to New York and other locations and filmed basically classic Billy spots, where it'd be video locations, album cover locations, you name it. He's covered so much territory. He's a great guy to know and really takes pride in connecting fans. And we've also got Melissa and Teddy Boileau, and they host the Songs from the Attic radio show, which can be heard Sundays from 10 to 11 Eastern Time on WVOA, which is 87.7 in Syracuse, New York. And you can also listen to them online on SoundCloud, and they also have a Facebook group. If you search Songs from the Attic, you'll find it there.
And I brought in 2 guys that I've had the pleasure of playing some Billy Joel with over the past few years in and around Philadelphia. First, we have Matt DiMarino, and Matt and I were in Angry Young Band, the Billy Joel tribute. And we also have Billy Handy. He's been a booking agent for wedding and corporate bands for 10 years and a professional musician for 20. When COVID hit, all these bookings dried up, so he dug into learning new songs and spent about a year learning as many Billy Joel songs as he could, since Billy's his favorite artist and the one he grew up with. So over the last few months, he and I had the opportunity to play a few stripped-down outdoor shows, and they've been a lot of fun. And since the podcast came out, Billy's been great about emailing me like different YouTube clips and comments and stuff like that a few times we've used on the show. So with that in mind, let's turn it over to the roundtable. So let's kick things off. So we, the way we set this up is we just came up with a couple general questions and we sent them out to everybody ahead of time. And we figured we'd ask them one by one, get everyone's answers, and just see where it goes from there. So I guess we'll go in the order in which we introduced everyone. The first question is, each of you has a media project involving Billy's music. We want to know what inspired you to launch it. And Mike, you want to kick it off?
Well, I've got so many different ones that I've started and half done over the years. The main one, I suppose, is going to be just the Facebook group, Billy Joel Completely Retold. We started back in 2011. It was right after Facebook started letting people create your own groups and create your own pages other than your profile. And I wanted to do something to kind of bring fans together. I had a bunch of bootleg CDs that I had collected over the years, and I wanted a way to share them with other fans and just discuss them and talk about them. And so I made a group. I was also, I work at a hospital, and during my lunch period, I'd go down to a grand piano they had down in the lobby, and I'd play Billy music on it and record myself, and I would post those videos. That was kind of the first thing I did starting out. And then I started posting videos of outtakes and stuff like that. And that's kind of where I came up with the idea to make a group basically on the outtakes from all of Billy's albums.
Melissa, how about you?
So, like most things in my life, the most random conversations and questions end up becoming things that I never dreamed of. I'm a certified double master's degree teacher. I had no experience in radio at all, fell into it. That's a whole nother story. And in passing, had said to someone, I would really love to have an all Billy Joel radio show. And the quote back to me was, well, why can't you? Wait a minute, what? So come to find out, the station I worked for also had this other dial position where you can buy airtime. You could do whatever kind of show you wanted. And thus, Songs from the Attic was created.
That's fantastic. So Teddy, your story's similar, obviously.
Melissa. So when she wanted to start the Billy thing, she needed an engineer. I'm a musical background. I played drums since I was a kid. But I got into sound engineering also. So that's how I got dragged into doing the radio show every Sunday. But I will admit, I've had a riot. We've had amazing things happen. But it was because of Melissa that I got into it. When she was going to do this, I'm like, okay, I need to study the guys. And then listening to Billy's live music. I'm a huge live music person. Billy's live stuff, I just can't get it. It's phenomenal.
That's where he really shines, is the live versions.
It's amazing. And, I could go on for a while, but one of my dreams is to meet Brian Ruggles, sound engineer extraordinaire.
And longest tenured guy in the crew.
Isn't there on the one of the live recordings, it's like it's Brian Ruggles' birthday or something, like his 21st birthday, I think?
Yeah, it was like 19 or 21 or something, like super young still, yeah.
Has anybody seen like an interview or anything with Brian or read one?
He was just with Carl a couple weeks ago on his live show. Yeah, it was really great. And I think Carl said he's going to have him back too, sooner than later.
I've been trying to look for old video stuff or anything from him. There's a bunch of audio engineers for big national acts that have posted videos on their techniques, so on and so forth. I can't find any on Brian. And I'll be honest with you, Brian is probably one of the best audio engineers, period. Not just because he's with Billy. I mean, the Carrier Dome is known for being one of the worst audio places, period. And yet Billy sounds great in it. And it's all due to Brian. And here's the other thing. You look at the videos of Billy. What is he singing into? An SM58. That's it. Every singer on that stage is a 58. And they sound ungodly. And that's due to Brian.
All right, Matt, so that brings us to you, actually. You and I were together in Angry Young Band. So what's your recollection of that coming together?
Yeah, so Jack and I have a mutual friend who asked me to audition for a different project. And out of that meeting came a collateral project, which ended up being Angry Young Band. And what I remember from being in that audition was there was a little bit of downtime, and I think I started playing the prelude Angry Young Man riff, which is not only fun to play, but it's just a great time filler. And I think that's kind of what sparked the idea, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I remember you did that, and then we like kind of played through the fast part of Scenes from an Italian Restaurant for a minute too, and then we picked it up from there. The first time we played, which is at Sweeney's, when we still had Ray on piano and Matt was actually playing guitar for the first couple of shows. And it was like the first time we played, man, there was this look on your face. You looked like so happy doing it.
Yeah, because I'd had the stipulation that I didn't want to generally get into another live situation unless it was going to be like the right one. And like this was just serendipitous the way that we happened to meet, and we were both just these huge Billy Joel fans. We both grew up listening to him, and it was just like kismet, you know.
Billy, you're up.
I'm not really sure if I have a media outlet, but I do have a lot of different channels that I like to channel Billy through. When 2020 came around last March, trying to make the best out of a bad situation, I decided that I wanted to really fall in love with music again and learn as much music as I could. I've just been able to focus on playing and just learning and absorbing music, and trying to go out and play as much as I can, small gigs, things like that. But my focus right now has just been solely on Billy music, and I've just been loving every minute of it.
So I'm going to throw a curveball question in here now that I heard everyone's stories. And this is mostly for Billy, Matt, and Mike. Since you three are piano players, what do you think is your favorite Billy song to play, even if it's not your favorite to listen to?
I really love playing the prelude just because of how it's technically brilliant and challenging at the same time. But also it's just like, it's one of those things where it explodes out of the piano.
Mine's The Entertainer. I love playing The Entertainer. It's a song that builds specifically on the piano throughout the whole piece. Starts off pretty, just basic chords, and it goes into I think Billy calls it banjo fingers a little bit, throughout the tune. And that's a lot of fun to play, especially with the full band. That's a great song to play. Not necessarily my favorite Billy song, but probably my favorite song to play.
How about you, Mike?
I'd probably go with Mexican Connection. It's not one that I've heard a lot of anybody else play. I like how it starts simple and quiet and then really builds up. Seems like a challenging song, but it's not actually that hard to play. I play that a lot at the hospital, and I get a lot of comments on that. I also like playing after the key change at the end of Moving Out.
Yeah.
I love that part when you listen to it live with the horns. I get goosebumps every time, and it's fun to play, especially going down the extra octave for the final run through.
Mexican Connection, that was a good call, because I was just listening to Street Life Serenade today, and that's just such an underrated album.
Are you guys using apps, or are you guys using sheet music, or what are you guys using to use your charts?
I never took piano lessons. I was in 9th grade. I got straight A's, so my mom said she'd buy me a keyboard. And so I was kind of self-taught from there. I ended up getting a Billy Joel songbook, and I just sat down. It's not a very efficient way of learning. Since I can't read the music, I have to learn the hands separate. I'll learn the right hand part, then I'll go back, learn the left hand part, and then slowly merge the two and just memorize what goes where. To start out, I just did memorizing the Hal Leonard sheet music.
So now we're going into the Billy Joel origin stories. How did you become a Billy Joel fan? Let's start off with Mike.
I just kind of was always around it. I was in kindergarten in 1980, and my dad bought and brought home the Glass Houses album. So I heard that a lot, just kind of getting my feet wet, hearing it around the house. 3rd grade, 1983, I was a latchkey kid, and I'd spent a lot of time over at my grandma's house. She had cable and MTV, and that's where I got exposed to the Innocent Man videos. It was enough to where I went and bought the greatest hits just for Tell Her About It, Longest Time, and Uptown Girl. Then in high school, met a girl who I really had a crush on, and one day I heard her walking through the hall singing And So It Goes. And that's where I started collecting the albums and started teaching myself piano.
Nice.
And it just went from there. And then in 1995, I was in a car accident where my friends who knew I liked Billy got in touch with him and his record company, and he ended up sending a get well package with like $400 worth of CDs, videos, stuff like that. That was kind of what caused me to go on and create the group too. I remember back in the day going to eBay auctions for rare stuff and writing down all the emails of the people that bid on it, and then sending them emails and saying, "Hi, my name's Mike. I have that CD. You want to trade?" And do that, started a collection like that. And then when I started my Facebook group, I went through all those emails I had written down and sent out invitations. Like Tony Walker, a lot of old school people that are in the group I met through that way.
Melissa, how about you?
It's kind of just been there through my whole life. My parents were never really big music people, but music was always around. I wore the 8-track for so many Bee Gees albums out in my mom's car, but the car was the Bee Gees, and like different places were different music. I truthfully have no idea how it started, why it started, when it started. The only thing I can tell you is the greatest moments of my life have been surrounded by his music, his concerts, people I've met through him.
That's awesome.
That's great. How about you, Ted?
I really didn't become a Billy fan until I married Melissa, kind of, but
No.
honestly,
You had to like him before you married me. I wouldn't say yes until
That was
you
part of the deal, right?
I did like his music, but I became an Uber fan, honestly, because of Chuck Berge.
So that's kind of recent.
Yeah, it is. Liberty was always a great inspiration when I was in high school with some of the drum riffs that he came up with. I mean, I'll be honest, one of the most iconic is the beginning of
Only the Good Die Young.
Right, Only the Good Die Young. It's just iconic. But I became an Uber fan through Chuck Berge when we were going to meet Mike Del Judas and see them at the Turning Stone. I said, and we were going to start the radio show. I'm like, all right, let me find out about the band. And obviously, being a drummer at heart, I went to the drummer first, Chuck Berge, found out who he was with, Paul Oates, Enrique Iglesias, Dio, all them guys.
His resume is crazy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But then they had another band that he had started up with Andy Sachon, the bass player,
And
called
Wade.
Shotgun Wedding. And Wade.
And Dennis and
Delgadio.
Dennis, yeah.
Yep. And so through that research, found out they were all playing the last play at Shea, which is my Island CD. That DVD, that album, the way the band sounded, the way Billy sounded, nothing gets me like that. The live stuff, that's when I just became an Uber fan. Then I went to my first concert. It was it.
And it was over. Yeah.
It was it. Yep. It was over.
Oh, fantastic. So, Matt, same with you. How did you get into Billy? What brought you into becoming a fan?
Yeah, I think I fall into a little bit of what Mike was saying about the greatest hits. I definitely had 1 and 2 at some point. That's generally a good lead in to his back catalog. But I do remember memories included B101 is one of the local, or at least it was. I don't know if it still is anymore. But it was like the station, that was like the adult contemporary station that always played a few of Billy's songs. But where we were in time at that point, in 5th grade, River of Dreams for me was big. And I had seen, students would have the CDs of it and, they would be talking about it. But I do remember that. And so from hearing a little bit on the radio and having the greatest hits, one Christmas I said, I'm just going all out. I said, I just want all of his back catalog. So I asked for like pretty much all of the CDs that I didn't have, which is interesting because I didn't get all of them, but I got like Songs in the Attic and I got the Russian album. And I didn't realize that they weren't like studio albums. So the first versions I heard of like Miami 2017 was the big the synthesizer sweep at the beginning. And I was just like, man, it sounds so cool. And then so when I did actually go back and like buy Turnstiles, like the studio, it was not really a letdown, but it was just like, oh, but the live versions is just right in your face and it's so cool. That was an interesting thing. But then, I do remember eventually I got Street Life Serenade and like, I don't know why that album in particular just has such a vibe to it with the pedal steel and it gives you that like feeling of just like a laid back, lazy Sunday for some reason. And I remember one time I had to do chores because I was in high school. My parents told me to like vacuum or something. So I put the Discman on, I played that for the first time and I'm vacuuming. I'm just like, I didn't even care. I was just like, I was so zoned in. I must have vacuumed like the same spot like 40 times. But that's pretty much it.
How about you, Billy?
So I grew up in a very musical family. My grandmother was a choir director. My dad's a professional musician. I just grew up with music in my house. I was started at piano at a young age. I hated it. I wanted to be a drummer. My grandfather, who had passed away when I was just a baby, was a drummer, and his drums were in the basement of my grandmother's house. So I used to go over and just wail away on the drums all the time. But then as I got older, River of Dreams came out. When I say older, I forget how old I was, but it was pretty young. That was like, oh my gosh, there's a really cool person that plays the piano. I want to be just like this guy. And I got River of Dreams, which was my first album, fell in love with it and took the book. I bought the book. The book's actually behind me right here. Took it to my piano teacher and said, I want to learn all these songs. I remember even in 5th grade, I dressed up as Billy Joel and went into my 5th grade class with a keyboard. I was being interviewed as I was Billy Joel, and I took my keyboard in, I played. All the girls loved it. It was awesome. And as a musician, and just from a young age till now, I had all of his CDs growing up. I bought all his records. It's hard for me to explain. Billy's been such a huge influence in my life, both musically, but also I don't know the guy, but almost personally, you kind of feel like you know him through his music, right? Like you know his story. So that's been a huge inspiration to me. And that's kind of how I got started with Billy Joel.
All right, so let's get into some deeper fan questions here. And so the next question is, what's one lyric that's always stuck out to you or has always resonated with you? So Mike, we'll start with you.
Back in high school, so this would have been about 1992, 93, I worked at a video rental store, and they had a copy of Live from Long Island that I'd pop in and watch nearly every shift. One time I was watching during Souvenir. I hadn't, at that point, never really listened closely to the words or see what he was singing about. And then I just remember when he hit that line, your mementos will turn to dust, but that's the price you pay. And my eyes welled up, and I'm glad no one was in the store because I think a tear came down. It just, for whatever reason, that lyric just hit close to home. And so that's what I'm going to say.
That's a great line.
Great. Yeah. How about you, Melissa?
So I think it kind of goes to the mindset. And if you talk to any Billy fan that I've ever met, they always say, he wrote the soundtrack to your life. So depending on if you wanted to go sentimental, angry, however you wanted to go, you could pick a lyric. But the one that stands out to me, and every time we play this song on the show, I say, personally, I feel it is the most poignant lyrics he's ever written in 2,000 years. I just think that song is transcendent, really. So my lyric, without compassion, there can be no end to hate. And we do that. I actually bring that up in my classroom when we do Martin Luther King stuff in particular. Like we look at that and we look at different examples of music tying into that mindset of how we get over the anger and the hate and things like that are in the world.
It's a great way to get into it. What grade do you teach, Melissa?
Second.
How do the kids react to that? Do you tell them that it's Billy Joel, or do you just give them the quote and go with it from there?
They know what classroom they're in the minute they walk in. They know that Mrs. Boileau wants to move to New York City like yesterday, and I have a bobblehead of Billy Joel. They are inundated with his music. I had a class. Billy was coming here to play at the Carrier Dome, and I was trying to use the children to finally get to meet him. I'm like, I can do this. I can make a lesson. I can make it fit the standard. This is what we're going to do. So I had the kids sing New York State of Mind. They dressed up like all of the symbols of New York State. I had another class be the Broadway chorus line. I had every media outlet in Syracuse show up at my elementary school to film these children doing this song. Mm-hmm. But that class could identify within 5 notes every one of his songs on all 3 greatest hits albums. That is my claim to fame as an educator.
All right, Teddy, that's a tough act to follow, but what's one lyric that's always stuck out or resonated with you?
This is my life. Go ahead with your own life. Leave me alone. Especially nowadays in the within the past 5 months. Yeah, that's me. Leave me alone. That and Scenes are my favorite songs. So I know that's another question, but yeah, go ahead with your own life. Leave me alone.
Awesome. How about you, Billy?
I'm going to say you can't be everything you want to be before your time. I'm kind of a late bloomer, I guess one would say. And that was a line that always resonated with me. And that's actually my favorite Billy song as well. That lyric has always just struck a chord with my life.
And you recently recorded that yourself, right?
I did a track at a local studio here. I played the piano, I sang, I played synthesizers, and I played drums, did all the instrumentation. Rather than having an accordion player, I actually had a cellist do all of the solo parts. So I took the meter up a little bit. It's a little faster than the original, but I got to tell you, it was actually really cool. I did post it on Facebook, and Mike Del Judas commented on it and went, "You sound great," and that made my entire 2020. So that was pretty awesome. That's definitely my favorite lyric. But Mike, real quick. You just mentioned the VHS tapes. Do you remember the VHS tapes, the green and the red one? I think it had all the old videos on it.
Video album.
I've got those.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those were great. I used to rent those all the time. My mom would take me to the video store. And what do you want to get? I'll do the red one this time.
When the mom and pop video store eventually closed, I swiped them off the shelf.
See, now that's funny because my aunt made me a tape of it because they had the 2 VCRs. So I always had like a blank VHS. So I just now did I learn that there was a red one and what would you say, red and green?
Red and blue.
Red and blue, yeah. I never knew that. That's so funny.
That's back to when he was doing the Glass Houses videos with the live vocal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was different from the album.
All right, Matt, how about you?
Mine for me, I kind of have two if I can break the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
Go for it.
There's a line in the song Code of Silence, and it says, "It's hard to believe after all these years that it still gives you pain, it still brings tears, and you feel like a fool because in spite of your rules, you've got a memory." So that just kind of sums up the fact that like there could be something that you've carried with you all your life and you're fighting it, but you're not going to forget it. So you kind of have to learn to live beside it. And the other one for me, probably my favorite upbeat song, is Sleeping with the Television On. And he says, "I really wish I was less of a thinking man and more a fool who's not afraid of rejection."
Yeah.
And like, man, to string a line like that, because it just sums up perfectly what you might be feeling, but you don't know how to express that. Why couldn't I be more of a fool? Why do I have to keep rehashing things in my head over and over again? Which kind of goes back to the other lyric, I guess, I was talking about. But those would be my two.
I think there's a running theme in a lot of his lyrics with that. And speaking of Code of Silence, why has Billy and Crystal never done that song together?
I should.
For sure.
Why has Cyndi Lauper never showed up at the Garden? Because I will die. I will die.
Billy went, to return the favor, did a backup on one of her songs on one of her albums called Maybe He'll Know, I think it was called.
Liberty's on a song too.
I just thought of one because we were talking about the Garden concerts, but I'm wondering if anybody wants to take guesses as to who do we think is going to be the first special guest when the Garden concerts resume.
I hope
Liberty.
he has a bunch.
Yeah, I think
Liberty DeVito. Yeah.
I think it'll be Liberty. I think after they've made Men's, if Liberty came back, that would just for one song, that would just be, and it has to be Extremes. I would hopefully it'd be Extremes, because that was his signature beat.
I feel like that's like the Ringer one because I think we talked about that one too. Like that's.
Oh yeah. You and I talked about that off record, but it was like I've thought that ever since I read the book, and I'm like, Liberty's has to be the first one back. And I have tickets for the show. I can't wait.
When is that? When's it?
November 5th. I have a chain. I have a countdown.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will tell you this. I can't wait for as many of us being together in one place for that one show. I'm going to lose my mind for that. I don't care who the guest is. I just want it to be in November. I don't want to delay it anymore. I want to be there in the moment again because I miss it more than I ever possibly thought I could miss something in my life.
Yeah, 100%.
So who's your favorite Billy Joel band member? Past, present, Lords, non-Lords? Anyone who's ever played with Billy ever in his career. We could go back to the Lost Souls and the Hassles. Let's see what you guys got. How about you, Mike?
This was a tough one, and it's because I've met so many of them from all the different combinations of the bands. Watching a concert, yeah, definitely Liberty. Watching him bang on those drums it's the showmanship. It's just so fun to watch. Or like in Live from Long Island, they're starting scenes. Everybody's got a glass of wine. He grabs the bottle for the toast. He's the one that I like watching the most. I went out to New York in 2013 and got to meet the original band from the Piano Man tour. And those guys were just fantastic. Richie Canada, I got to play with him on stage at the Bitter End. He invited me to his recording studio, let me take a video tour through it and watch him perform and record some actual tracks. So I was there. And then the current band, Crystal, I've been chatting with her for a long time, especially all that she's gone through this last year. These guys feel like friends more than they feel like, someone that played on the album. And then, if I'm going non-Lords, I'd have to say, Mike Del Judas. I've eaten supper at his house. He's an actual friend. When I was in bed with COVID back in March, he chatted with me a lot. He let me do some work for his YouTube channel and stuff like that. So it's just, he's the one that I'd say is as close to a friend. It's hard. It's like picking out your favorite child. How
about you, Melissa?
I can't answer this question. This is the one I told you that you were going to hate me. I will say this. I 1000% appreciate, respect, admire the original guys that did the original stuff on those albums. But my heart is with those people that are on that stage at the Garden. I am not watching Billy anymore. I'm watching my friends on stage in front of all of these people performing. I watched the Shea Stadium concert and I cry hysterically because I'm looking at it going, these people have slept at my house. They've come to Teddy's birthday parties. It's a totally different thing. I mean, if I did not know them, my answer would be different. I cannot choose one of them.
Real quick, just as Mike and Melissa just told those stories, and I'm thinking back to how quickly Mike Del Judas signed on to do the episode about Doug when we were, I think, 3 or 4 episodes in. You know, it really is amazing how personable and down to earth these guys are. You know, I didn't know those 2 stories before, and just putting those together, I think that's a really unsung aspect of the band, both the Lords and the non-Lords, that these guys are really so of the people, you know?
I have an idea of what Teddy's answer might be.
I think you might be surprised.
Well, I got to say, my favorite, honestly, is Andy Sachon. We're friends, but he's my golf buddy. We play golf together.
That's awesome.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
We went on a golf trip down to Florida. Chuck is a very close second, but Andy, we have a lot in common. He's got a personality about him that is very, as a matter of fact, just a solid dude that would be your neighbor. There's some connections between drummers and bass players. The kindness of heart, you think alike. You're always in sync. And the fact that he's a golfer, I'm a huge golfer. First person we met was Mark.
Yeah, when we did
me
that
and Mark
big
drank
interview.
beer together.
The first meeting with Chuck was when you were naked on top of his truck.
No. That was the second.
I want to hear that
And I
story.
wasn't naked.
Go on.
Oh, come on.
Mortified. Absolutely
I
mortified.
wasn't naked on his truck. I had my shirt off fixing his truck in a parking lot where he was with the Moving Out band and the truck wouldn't start. I'm a master technician by trade. I got his truck running.
And didn't want to get your shirt dirty.
I had a white shirt on.
I get it.
I feel you guys have had this argument before.
Dennis and Wade, Dennis Salgadio and Wade Preston, and Dennis just turns and looks at me and he goes, does he know what he's doing? And we had to drive the train back and he couldn't find his shirt for a while because it was in the front of Chuck's truck. I'm like, we're not getting on that train with you shirtless. That's not happening on my watch.
That's
So
awesome.
Figure it out.
That's so good.
So my answer to the question, Andy Tachon, final answer.
That's great. Matt, how about you?
I would say Richie Kanata, just for the fact that he's a multi-instrumentalist, but he's also got the iconic sax sound that helped Billy form his signature New York sound. So there's that. And I'd also be remiss to say that Lib wasn't noteworthy as well. Of course, he's the other signature guy. But I also want to note just a quick story about Dave Rosenthal. I was just graduating college in 2004, and it was a point in my life where I was like a crossroads, but I was going to either stay on the East Coast or go out to LA. I don't know what made me do it. I guess I was just doing some research, but he had a studio at the time, and I was looking for, I'd gone to school for audio engineering, so I was looking for internships. And he actually emailed me back. From what I remember, he said, if you can get here, we'll see what we can do and see if we can make it happen. So he was going to open that opportunity up to me for various reasons. I just ended up taking the West Coast route, but I'm sure that he would have had a lot to teach me, and it would have just been a great experience.
Yeah. So Billy, what's your choice?
I love watching Crystal on stage, and just the chemistry that she has with Billy after so many years, it really shows. Even watching the last play at Shea, you think of Zanzibar, and she gives him the side eye. He kind of changes the lyrics around a little bit. And it's just like those little things. So I love watching Crystal. I love her energy, and I just love just the way she plays. I think she adds so much to the band with how much she has to offer as a saxophonist, as a vocalist, as a percussionist. I mean, she really is, in so many ways, the spine of that entire band. But I would say in previous terms, and Teddy, I might relate to you on this, is Doug Stegmeyer. What he was able to get out of the bass was just incredible. And as a drummer, you know that and you feel it. I think he's kind of the one member that everybody always is like, oh my gosh, it's Doug. But, I think he doesn't get a lot of the credit for what he did. And I love the way he played bass. But to go back to you, Teddy, I mean, it's funny watching Andy play bass. I've never seen somebody groove and dance with a bass the way Andy is with the bass. It's such a groove that he has. And to listen to Chuck, who has taken what Liberty did and built on that, some of the metal licks that he throws in, I think, Jack, you've mentioned this before, using a double bass drum pedal, and things like that. He
has a couple licks.
It's pretty remarkable. But if I had to say one, I really think Crystal would be my favorite. Every time he plays Extremes, when he yells out Crystal in the song, it's like,
clear as a crystal.
Yes, I always feel it. That's just a cool little connection that the two of them have. I think that's really cool. So I really appreciate her.
Can I jump in and say a really quick story about her? So the first time we met her, Teddy was recently diagnosed with diabetes. And when he first was diagnosed, he had neuropathy issues that were going on, which of course, as a drummer, that's petrifying. So we had mentioned it. I had talked to her and we were sitting at a restaurant in New York after the concert. And I look over and her and Teddy are sitting there praying together that he would be healed. I'm just going, we just met her and she is going above and beyond. Teddy's feet are fine now, by the way, but that energy and that positivity and who she is as a person.
Every time I see her, the first thing she asks is, how you doing? How's your sugar? Is the first thing she says to me.
That's so cool. I mean, the fact that you guys have those kind of connections, that's amazing. And those personal stories, that's so personal.
It's really true. And you don't realize it, I guess, until you do meet them. They're just like us. That they happen to just, they do what we wanted to do is do that for a living and do it in front of crowds that are just, I mean, what do you say? Like the other night we put on the Last Play at Shea DVD. She took a picture and posted it online. So next thing you know, Andy responded about her putting that on there. And he said, greatest moment of his life was that Last Play at Shea when McCartney came on stage.
Followed by tell her to turn it off and she won't be crying.
right. Yes. But, you know, they're just down to earth people. And after a while, it's they're just friends, you know, and none of this would be happening if it wasn't for Billy. Billy's one of the most iconic singer-songwriter performers of all time. They all support him in doing that, and they all do a phenomenal job. You know, from the first band to now the band. They're really cool people, and I haven't met one of them yet that's a jerk.
No,
they're
same here.
So personable, and they're happy and thankful. They are humble.
They are.
They're humble. They're humble that they have this to do as a job, and they've been able to make a career out of it. And and I'll tell you one thing about Billy: the crew, the band, he's taking care of all of them through this whole time.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Even the crew. You know, they got like a crew of 45 people. They're just great people to commiserate with. You know, the thing I kind of noticed is we're all musicians here. Well, we have that thing that burns in us, and that's communicative. And the fact that we appreciate them as musicians and people, they appreciate us too.
Teddy, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think it's so cool that guys like Mike and Carl and even Crystal with her Facebook Lives, they're welcoming us into their houses too. Right. So like there's such a personalness that I love watching Mike on the porch, and you might send a little message or something and he'll say, hey, Billy, Andy, how you doing? I'm like, oh, he said my name. Very cool. You know, but like, it's so cool to like have those kind of connections. And even though 2020 sucked, I got to tell you, for me personally, I discovered Retold in 2020. I've been a Billy fan my entire life, but there's a community that I almost feel like I'm virtually friends with all these people. It's pretty cool. I think the band misses it just as much as we do. That's why they're opening their computers and their Facebook Lives to us to really still have that opportunity to see them and interact with us as well.
A quick story on how down to earth these guys are. When we were with Mark Rivera, when they were up here at the Dome, we took them out to dinner afterwards to a place that had a live band playing. The manager came over, knew who he was, asked, do you want to play it all with the band? He goes, yeah, why not? I ran outside, got his sax, brought it. He went up on stage to play with just these other musicians that he just met in a local little bar. There wasn't a hesitation.
No.
Oh, you guys want me to play with you? Oh, I'd love to. It's just, you know, amazing how humble all of them are. None of them have a chip on their shoulder.
Well, that was the same way too when I first met Liberty. From the get-go, he literally opened his home to me. His whole family were just so nice, warm, and just treated you like they've known you their whole life and still do. It's amazing.
That's freaking awesome.
You know, it's funny, Michael, too, because that was the story you told on our first episode. And
that's right.
Even as we talk, I got kind of part of the story there. Oh, yeah, they were closed for a couple of years. They did this, they did that. Then when we had Liberty on and he launches into like all these other stories that you hadn't told yet. And I realized like I didn't even understand the depth of like how close you guys were back then. And that was really cool.
First time I met him was at a funk club rehearsal at his house. So he answered the door, introduced me to his family, and the band was already in the office starting to get set up. He just grabs a computer chair and sets it down next to his floor tom. Like, have a seat. And they go into one of the songs, and I think I'm just now getting my hearing back after that first day. So loud.
So next, I think we're going to dance about architecture a little here and start describing videos. I wanted everyone here to recommend their favorite Billy Joel YouTube clip. So not an official video or a song, maybe an unofficial concert snippet, an interview, a cameo, something like that.
So is it cameo on Billy or any of his band members?
Anyone.
Yeah.
Teddy's got a really
open
great
it up.
answer.
All right, we'll start with you, Teddy.
Again, Andy Sashone, when he played in Judge Mercy, there's a video of Andy. He's the lead singer and rhythm guitar player. He plays phenomenal guitar. The Time for Talk is Over is a video that was done of his band in Judge Mercy before he came here to the States in Australia. Oh, I love it. I see that and I smile and
Oh my God.
gets me.
We aired it on the show, and then Andy calls us and goes, "Really? Really? How did you find that?"
Oh, that's amazing.
He's got a good voice, and he actually can hit a high C.
Wow.
He's the lead singer. He was the lead singer of that band.
He was the lead singer of Judge Mercy. The Time for Talk is Over. Typical 80s hair band in a small rock.
Yeah.
Oh my, it's awesome.
I love it.
How about you, Mike?
This is tough because back in '94, I started collecting, TV clips and stuff like that and trading them. I kept a copy of everything I came across. So I've just seen a day's worth of footage, I'm sure. Narrowing it down for this, I came up with, there is a promo video that he made when Billy was in Home Run Music, or that was the name of his company, Home Run. And they did a promo video advertising the Turnstiles album, where it starts out just him on the piano. He's like, "Oh, hi, I'm Billy Joel." Totally lounge singer. And then he'd introduce the people. It's hilarious. It was just funny. It shows the humor side of him, even way back then. That's one of my three that I recommend. What's Turnstiles promo clip, I think, is what it's listed as on YouTube. Second one would have to be a soundboard recording of a sound check they did back in 1977 called The Stranger Sound Check. Pretty sure it was recorded at the Coliseum. It's about an hour and a half long, and it's just a hilarious sound check in the stuff they're doing. He's doing impressions. He's making up stuff on the fly, just going off on riffs he's coming up with. There's a version of Moving Out where they're changing it, where he's like, "If that's what you have in mind, yeah, that's what you have in mind. Mama, if that's what you have in mind, that's what you have in mind." Walking around, playing in the wrong keys, just stuff like that. And it's just hilarious the whole way through. And it's fun. They're getting the sound system ready, but just listen to that kind of talent when you're just goofing around. It's hilarious. And then the last one I wanted to bring up was, there's a clip I put out there. It's just audio, but I put photos to make something to look at. First concert I went to was Face to Face in Ames, Iowa. It was the same weekend as Woodstock 94. He ended up doing a tribute to Woodstock, and they sang the whole song of Joe Cocker's With a Little Help from My Friends.
Yep.
And that's kind of the thing that started me on collecting recordings. Once I heard on the internet that people record concerts and trade concerts, I made a goal that I was going to find somebody that had recorded that concert. And about 10 years later, I found someone who happened to. I wanted a recording of him singing that song, and all this stuff I've collected in my whole Retold group, it was because I wanted to find that song. So I made a video of it. It's called Billy Joel Tribute to Woodstock.
Funny you mentioned the Turnstiles promo clip. We just put out an episode on 1976, and we dig into that one a bit as well.
Yeah, funny enough, that episode just came out today, and we're recording this tonight, and so it's funny to bring that one up. Yeah. Matt, how about you?
There's one called like Untitled Rare Demo. It's like a nondescript name, and I don't think he ever had a name for it, but he references the phrase "simple joys of life" a couple times. So if you wanted to kind of like pinpoint it by that, but there's that one. And this isn't like my final answer, by the way, but I just wanted to put that out there for your listeners if they want to try to find these. But there's also another one called Where's the Revolution, which sounds like somewhat like a Big Star song. There's a couple more of them, but if you find those, you might get linked to the other ones. But anyway, the one that I wanted to point out, have any of you ever heard the Silver Bells recording with
Steve Martin?
Yes, it's great.
Okay. Well, then I'll just put that out there for anyone who hasn't heard it, because that's like one of my favorite little like nuggets, where Billy's on the piano and on the backing vocal. Paul Simon's doing the lead vocal, And in the middle of it, Steve Martin just does this hilarious, I think it's an off the cuff kind of thing,
Yeah.
but it's gold and it's silver bells. But you can find it. Just type that in. You'll be glad you did.
Now I give this to Billy, the man that at least almost once a week emails me a random Billy Joel clip. It says, "Hey, check this out," and a couple of them make it on the podcast. Yeah,
I have fun with it. What can I say? All right, top three, real quick. There's a video from, I think it's in DC back in 2009, where Elton John breaks the sustain pedal on his piano. And Billy is on the ground fixing Elton John's piano in front of 60,000 people. It's amazing. And Elton's there like cussing up a storm, going, "Oh, this really sucks," But that's a great one. Jack, when I sent you most recently was the video in Rome when Billy's playing Angry Young Man and the whole piano just goes silent. And Billy just looks up and he's just like, "Are you kidding me?" If there's one thing that you can't screw up at a Billy Joel concert, is the piano. Like, you can't have the piano come out at a Billy Joel show. It's a great clip. This one, I'll go a little deep. 98 in Philadelphia. There's two live videos. And on the second of the two live videos, he's playing Keeping the Faith. Back then, Billy had the synthesizers back on either side of the back of the stage. He's playing it and he would spin the pianos once in a while. And the boom mic was actually attached to the piano. And I don't know who the stagehand was, but the boom mic was not completely attached. So when Billy spins the piano, the mic boom is coming around about 3 seconds behind it very fast. And Billy has to duck out of the way as this boom mic almost nails him right in the face. And you see all the stagehands running out right away to like try to fix the problem. Yeah. Those are my top three.
I always like to know when people saw Billy for the first time and if you have any memories surrounding your first show. So, Mike, what was your first Billy show?
I saw him and Elton together in Ames, Iowa in August of 1994. This was back before the internet and before Ticketmaster online. So I actually got to camp out for tickets. I went like 1 a.m, went down to Ticketmaster. It was an indoor place. I'm in Minnesota and this was in the middle of winter. It was in a grocery store. They had a little Ticketmaster and I just camped out on the floor for about 8 hours. Second person in line didn't show up for another 6 hours. And then I had a friend of mine come. You were each able to buy 8 tickets and you had to have cash back then. So I was sitting in a grocery store for 8 hours all night with $1,000 cash in my pocket. So we ended up getting about 16 tickets to this concert. First 6 of them were in the front row. There was a special, I don't know if it was VIP, but there was 5 rows in front of us, then a little space. And then we had the front row of the first big section, which was good because then we had room to dance and it was fun. Like I said, he did the tribute to Woodstock. Back then he'd run out in the audience. He actually ran out into one of the sides during Only the Good and was running through. And it looked like he was going to run right to me and then turned up and went back to the stage. So just stuff like that I can remember from the concert. And it was, like a 3.5 hour drive with 15 friends back and forth. It was a good first concert.
Melissa, how about yours?
My first concert was, I was 11 years old, and it was the first time Billy played the Carrier Dome here. It was the Stormfront tour. So it was February 2nd, 1990. And if you know anything about Central New York, you do not want to be here from the months of lately. It's December through, could be June. There was a horrible, horrible, horrible snowstorm. Getting up to the Carrier Dome is a feat in and of itself. It's placed in a very horrible location of the city. He sold out 2 nights back to back, and I was at the first night. And that was the first concert I ever saw was Ray Charles when I was 7. But Billy was my second concert at the Dome. And it was kind of just one of those things that I will always, it's probably honestly one of my earliest memories, even though I was 11, just being there and taking it all in. There is a great YouTube clip of the entire concert. So when I listened to that, and it's got the Wizard of Oz intro that happened during that tour, it is amazing to sit back and listen to it and go, my God, I was there, and to have a recording of it. When you guys were talking about snippets earlier, Teddy did his, I'm going to throw in mine. There was a version of Extremes at the Garden on March 21st, 2019, which was my 40th birthday gift from Teddy to me, was going down there. And it was the very first time I was ever in the front. And as soon as I got up there, he played that song, which I always say is my theme song pre-medication. That was kind of, as far as concerts goes, that moment.
I didn't realize that your first Billy show was 10 days before mine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mine was mid-February as well in Detroit.
Oh, so you had weather too then.
Unlike Mike, we didn't have the luxury of waiting in a grocery store to buy tickets. We had to camp out outside in December in Detroit. I remember it was so cold.
Early on, I had connections at the university and I was 11, so they weren't going to let me, sit outside at 11 years old. But I did for some other shows at the Dome. And those memories, man, I think people nowadays are missing out on that, camping out, waiting for concert tickets. You got the map in your pocket of like what the stadium is. So when they tell you where your seats are, you can look at it and be like, okay, no, yes, no, yes. You got to talk really quick. And who wants this and who wants that? It's like being in Wall Street.
I know. Same tour. That's crazy.
That's really cool.
Teddy, how about you?
My first concert was at Madison Square Garden. I think it was in 2017. Is that the right one for his whatever his 61st birthday was?
No. If any of you listened to our show this past week.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. All right. Hush up. Hush. Quiet.
It's like I'm listening to the show right now.
It had something to do with the number 65, and it was at Madison Square Garden. She'll tell you the rest. But that was my first Billy concert, believe it or not.
His first concert was at the Garden, May 9th, Billy Joel's 65th birthday show, where Howard introduced him because he was just on the town hall with Howard. Teddy and I got in a huge bet about this on our show Sunday because he swore it wasn't his first show.
I lost.
That was his first show. He's getting that confused with the show that we were at when Billy hit his 65th run of the residency, which is where he's getting confused with his numbers.
I had the number 65 in there.
Was that the birthday concert where he had the birthday cake with a motorcycle coming out of it? You remember those pictures I've posted?
I do. Yes, I think that was. I do remember the pictures. That was my first time ever at the Garden, and that's like Mecca to me because it's like, holy cow, I'm seeing him in his hometown.
Matt, how about you? Your first Billy show?
Billy, you were talking about in 98, the Philly shows?
Yeah.
I was at one of those. I'm not sure how many he played that year, but it was supposed to be in 97. I mean, it was my first Billy show at my first concert as well, but it was one of the ones that he kept postponing. So yeah. I'm not even certain of the actual date. It's funny because the way that I came into the tickets, I told my parents that year that I wanted, this would have been in 97 in Christmas that year. I said, all I want is to go to a Billy show. And so they didn't know that I was a fan. They would always kind of wait to see like what my connection was and like, how much into him I was. One day, I think my mom or somebody was like, do you want to watch the Behind the Music? It's on Billy Joel. It's coming on now. And I was like, no, it's all right. And so later on, she comes to me and she's like, are you sure you're a Billy Joel fan? Because you didn't want to watch the Behind the Music. And I was like, I've seen it 4 times already. And she's like, oh, okay. I was kind of like in the back of my mind, I was like, maybe that means that she's just like, feeling it out, and maybe I'm actually going to get the tickets. So that year, Christmas comes and it's Christmas Day. I'm like opening all the gifts and everything. And I come to the last gift and I'm like, almost beside myself because I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to go because, I had no tickets so far. And then I'm like, wait a minute, the stocking. I still have hope, I go through my stocking and it was the last thing in the boot in an envelope. That was like the greatest thing ever. It's like the only thing I wanted and my first concert, which I will say that I purposely passed up a Reba McEntire concert so that I could go to a Billy Joel concert as my first and say it was my first one. So,
that's awesome.
That's cool.
Wow.
Billy, how about you? Your first Billy show?
My first show was, I think September 28th, 93 or 94, River of Dreams tour that year. I think it was September 28th.
93.
93?
Yeah.
October 94, I saw him in Fargo, and that was the last American show.
All right, so I saw the first set of shows. Similar story. My sister took me to the show, which was pretty awesome. I stole my 2 T-shirts that I got, the traditional black River of Dreams T-shirt that has River of Dreams. The hunter green one has a little emblem on the side. That was my first show. My second show was 98. But this is a funny story, and I don't mean to take a whole lot of time, but when Billy Elton came in, I guess maybe it had been 2001, maybe? I forget exactly what year. I asked my parents if I can get tickets to the show, and they said, no, they're too expensive. You're not going. Well, my mom left her purse out, and I ended up ordering 12 tickets.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And
he's alive to tell the story?
Yeah.
I ordered 12 tickets, and most of them were crappy seats up, but then I ordered 2 on the ground. I ended up selling all the tickets for actually more than I bought them for. And I was like, this is great. My parents actually went to the show.
Oh,
Believe it or not. Like, I was in trouble. Don't get me wrong. But my parents weren't going to pass up an opportunity to see Billy Joel. So, but I didn't realize back then that a floor seat all the way in the back really kind of sucks, because like you can't really see anything in front of you unless you're tall, and I'm pretty short. So as soon as the lights dimmed and the intro music started playing, I jetted down the center aisle and jumped the railing. And I literally was with my elbows on the stage like this the entire concert. And you could see me in the Jumbotron. And my parents were in the back. And I'm like this during We Didn't Start the Fire touching Billy's leg, you know, and it was like, it was just a really funny story. My parents never let me let that down, but I think I ended up spending like $1,200 my mom's credit card to buy all these tickets.
Wow.
So
how did you get up front without security stopping you?
I ran as fast as I could, and I jumped, and nobody said a damn thing.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And it was literally, it was when the lights, it was completely dark. You couldn't see. Everybody was standing and cheering. Everybody was going crazy. And I just jumped that front fence, that little railing. And people are kind of looking at me like, here are you. Where's your wristband? I'm kind of like, hey, how are you? And just kind of like, but literally it was the greatest thing. It was like 2 feet in front of Billy the entire show, which was amazing.
Great story.
That's a great story.
All right, last question, guys. Thanks for hanging out, man. This has been great. We didn't know how this was going to go, and this has been a lot of fun. I hope you guys are having a good time, too.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
All right, so we're going to wrap up with this one. And, you know, I wrote this one last, and it sounded like it'd be a good tie-up one, but we've probably run through a lot of these already. But still, just to close everything out, I'd love to know everybody's strongest non-concert memory of Billy or his music, be it, you know, meeting someone or a moment that really meant something to you. Just if there's one thing you'd want the listeners to take away from your relationship to Billy and his music, what would it be? So, Mike, we'll start with you.
So I started Retold in 2011. 2 years later, the original band was recreating the Sigma Sound concert, and they were going to play at the bitter end. I bought a ticket. I'm out here in Minnesota. I'm like, well, let's see if I can get this to work. Took a trip, and I spent about a week and a half out on Long Island, just hanging out with people from the group. If you go on YouTube, if you search Billy Joel location tours, and then like with different years, starting in 2013 and 2014, I've done several trips out. But that first trip out, Andy Gilmartin took us around, and we saw so many neat things that I felt like was at church. You know, he took us to see the Glass House from the Glass Houses cover. It happened to be vacant, so we actually snuck back onto the patio and got pictures recreating it. Another thing that totally humbled me was he took me to Doug Stegmeyer's childhood home where his mom still lived. And we hung out with her for an afternoon, her telling us stories, gold and platinum records on the wall. Doug's old piano that he used to play was there. It was an out-of-body experience. I'm like, I don't belong here. How did I get here? What's going on? And if you look at those videos that I posted with the Innocent Man steps, the turnstile steps, we found the place where they filmed the Queensboro Bridge from You're Only Human, where the kid goes up. Seeing these things in real life that I'd always seen on CD covers and stuff like that, it was just cool. And that's one of the big parts in the group that I've tried to do. That, along with getting the musicians and the members of the band's recognition, going, you know, even all the way back to Cold Spring Harbor, just letting them know. A lot of the band members have joined the group because of the positive interactions they've had, and just letting them know we haven't forgotten about them. That was one of the big things. A couple of years ago, Al Hertzberg, who was the guitar player in that first tour, he kind of became recluse. He didn't really go out or talk to people anymore. And one of his relatives had joined the group, and we got him a platinum record award for his contribution to Piano Man. And a few Retolders went over and presented it to him. And he was just so happy to know that he hadn't been forgotten. And so I just kind of made that the mission. One of the missions of the group was just to spread what these people have done and let them know we haven't forgot about them.
Great. Melissa, how about you?
I've always said that on my gravestone when I die, I want it to be written that I was known as that girl from Syracuse who loves Billy Joel. But I owe this 100% to you, Mike Stutz. So I'm so glad that you are here. As Tommy Burns says, my little radio show in Syracuse has, honest to God, and not being too cliche about it, has truly changed the course of my life. The people that I have met because of my little radio show and because of that Retold page, they became like listeners of the show and then fans and then friends. And now these people are my family. And I finally feel like after years, I have a core group of people and we are not close to one another at all, but we are bonded forever from Billy and his music. And he literally has brought us. And if it were to all go away tomorrow, I would want nothing more than to keep these people in my life for the rest of my life, because I don't want to know a day without them anymore.
All right, Teddy?
I had a couple. Playing golf with Andy was one, working on Truck's truck. But I did meet one of my drumming idols because of Billy. We went to a concert. After the concert, we went to the bar with the band and so on and so forth. And then after that, we walked around the corner to the pizza shop where we typically go at 3:30 in the morning after the bar. And next thing I know, in the pizza shop, this woman comes in, bumps into my wife. My wife starts getting pissed off and says, who does she think she is? Blah, blah, blah. And I look over, I see her, and I look who she's with. And I walk up to the guy, and I bumped him, and I said, hey, you're Taylor Hawkins, aren't you?
Oh, that's cool. Wow.
Next thing I know, I turn around. His wife is sitting at the table with my wife, and they're talking. We go over. We spent the next 45 minutes to an hour talking with Taylor Hawkins. He's a huge Liberty fan.
Yes.
Talking about Liberty, talking about Dave Grohl, talking about Foo Fighters, and then talking about life. It was pretty awesome. You know, I loved the guys in the band, met all of them, but that was a one-off. You know, I'm sure I'll never see the guy again, but because he really was. Taylor Hawkins is just, again, down-to-earth, humble guy. It was fun. It was a ride.
They were going to hire me to teach their children at home. I was like, yes, I'll teach. Sign me up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How about you, Matt?
I had kind of a special bond with my high school history teacher, obviously because, he was a big Billy Joel fan as well. So I kind of looked up to him for that. Somehow it came about that we were going to work out a few tunes. He was going to sing them, and I played piano on them. And we actually did. So my senior year, we performed at one of our holiday concerts. We did Piano Man. The crowning moment was my graduation. We did a medley of This Is the Time and Souvenir. And it kind of felt like I was Billy, kind of like ending our time there because he would use Souvenir to end a bunch of his shows. Mm-hmm. And so it was very poignant. But yeah, that by far was my moment.
Billy?
Back, I guess, in 2009, I had just signed on to Facebook for the first time, and I checked myself into a Billy Joel concert at Citizens Bank Park. And a friend of mine who was managing a restaurant in Center City messaged me and says, believe it or not, I actually lived in the same building as this restaurant. And he said to me, Billy Joel may or may not be here for lunch tomorrow, but I would suggest coming in around 12:30 for lunch. There's a great special. Okay. So I go in at 12:30, and there's Billy and Alexa and Max and this whole tour group. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, so I'm sitting there like having a couple drinks at the bar, and like, I have to shake his hand or say something, where I was sitting at this particular concert, where I went from being in the very front row in 98, I was in the very last row in section 426 at Citizens Bank Park, which is the furthest, cheapest seat you can buy. And Billy actually made a comment during the show. Hey, all you guys up in the Poconos up there, thanks for coming to the show. When Billy was leaving, I got my check real fast, and I went outside and I held the door for him as he was coming out. And I said, hey, Billy, great show last night. I was sitting up in the Poconos, but it still sounded great. He goes, oh, you were there? And I said, yeah. And I said, listen, do you mind if I get an autograph? And he goes, I don't have any pens. Well, I came prepared. I had like 12 in my pocket, So he signed this little, which is the back of my restaurant receipt, because that's the only piece of paper that I had. That was probably the greatest thing, actually, meeting Billy. But on top of that, and I think groups like Retold and radio shows like you and Melissa and Teddy do, and Jack meeting you, during this time. And Michael, I haven't met you, but I listened to you. Mike, I've seen you play with the band, so it's like, it's so cool that this is actually a really great moment when it comes to being a Billy fan. I think there's a really strong community of us all that are so tied to Billy that even if there isn't live music, there aren't the concerts to go to, but there are these platforms where we can still communicate together with. I'm new to the whole group, so I'm just really honored to be part of this discussion tonight. And this is actually a highlight of a Billy experience for me, just being with you guys tonight. So it's pretty cool.
Well, I think that's an excellent point to wrap things up on. It's nice to think that we're kind of creating a little more of the Billy community lore tonight. Yeah, so with that, I want to thank everybody.
This has been a big treat. It goes to show how much Billy's music can connect all of us. And we just couldn't think of a better way to wrap up our first official year of doing this podcast. And so we're grateful to have all of you on with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
thank you
so much.
Well, that was a lot of fun. It's about midnight now, and I think we're all talked out.
Yeah, but I tell you what, we didn't have to do too much talking. We had so many great guests here that had so many cool stories. It was really nice to take a back seat for a change and let these folks drive the show.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, obviously, Teddy and Melissa and Mike knew each other, but Billy and Matt had never met. And Billy and Matt had never met Teddy, Melissa, and Mike. So it was really great to hear them all chatting together and having a good time.
Yeah, it was. A few friends, but everyone was friends by the end of it. And it was that common thread of Billy and the band that drew everyone together. They all just fed off each other. It was so cool.
So that's it for this episode. Once again, in keeping with the theme, please keep those emails coming. Please keep those Facebook comments coming. You can email us at glasshousespodcast@gmail.com, or you can always find us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, under Glass Houses, a Billy Joel podcast. And if you listen to us on Apple Music, please remember to give us a positive review and 5-star rating. It's a quick and easy way to support us, because the more positive reviews and 5-star ratings we get, the more people Apple Music puts us in front of.
And with that, we will see you next time.